Is Brisbane still Australia's best performing market, or can regional Queensland steal the spotlight in 2025? I'm Tim Graham, and the Property Playbook starts now. In this episode, I'm joined by Australia's leading independent property analyst, Terry Ryder, founder of Hotspotting. We'll be unpacking the insights for the top 5 Brisbane and top 5 regional Queensland hotspot reports, released in July 2025. With strong price growth, major infrastructure and soaring demand, Queensland continues to be a magnet for both homeowners and investors. Let's explore what's driving these markets and where the biggest opportunities lie. Terry, thanks for joining me.
You're welcome.
So, why don't we start? Tell us, what's the general sentiment around Brisbane and regional Queensland right now?
Really strong, really positive. You could say probably in a sentence that the focus has been for the last couple of years on Perth and Western Australia, but it's pivoted very much to Brisbane and regional Queensland. Not only there, but it's very much top of mind for investors, but also home buyers, because there's a lot of internal migration to Brisbane and other parts of Queensland, you know, for its lifestyle and affordability.
I know we talk a lot about the difference between the region and the city markets, but it's worth noting that regional Queensland regional markets are quite substantial regional markets. Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, Toowoomba. There's a lot of large density locations.
That's one of the great things about regional Queensland. More than any other part of Australia, it offers a really broad range of affordable growth regional cities with affordable prices, above average rental yields, prospects for growth. Driven by strong economies, infrastructure spend, and this internal migration, for which Queensland is the #1 recipient.
So let's start with the hot topic, the Olympic Games. Is it only going to affect Brisbane, or is it going to reach into those regional centres to benefit from it as well?
Yeah, well, it's important to note that it's not the Brisbane Olympics, it's the Queensland Olympics. So Brisbane's the main host city, but the Gold Coast gets a huge chunk of the action. The Sunshine Coast gets a huge chunk of it as well. But also other regional cities like Toowoomba is going to be hosting Olympic events, Rockhampton, Townsville and Cairns. So it's going to be spread right throughout the state. And I think that's a fantastic way to do it, because places like Townsville, for example, has got a wonderful stadium which hosts major concerts. World superstars have performed there. Major rugby league matches are held there. Major rugby union international. So we've got facilities like that throughout regional Queensland. But in addition to that, we've just had an agreement reached between the federal government and the state government of Queensland. They're going to invest $20 billion to prepare for the Olympics on sporting venues, but also even more has been spent on transport infrastructure. And that's a really important thing, because they've got to get people to the Sunshine Coast. Sunshine Coast, the coastal part, doesn't have a rail link at the moment. They've been promising it for years. They actually have to deliver it before the Olympics so that they can move all those large numbers of people who want to see whatever events are going to be hosted on the Sunshine Coast. So that's a big factor, but there's more, because we've just had the Queensland state budget, and they're investing massively on the Bruce Highway, which runs from the New South Wales border all the way up to Cairns and beyond. It desperately needs upgrades, and they're spending billions on that. They've investing $17 billion to boost exports from Queensland, and then we've got $3, $4, $5 billion hospitals under construction or about to start construction. So there's this massive infrastructure spend, and as you know, Tim, I'm very big on infrastructure as probably the #1 ultimate generator of growth in real estate markets.
Yeah, you've often said you follow the infrastructure trail and you'll do well.
Yeah, buy property that lies in the path of progress, and there's very few places in Australia where that's more so right now than Brisbane and regional Queensland.
Yeah. I mean, I visited Brisbane very recently with you for an awards night, and I remember saying to you, I hadn't been there for a couple of years, and from my previous experience being there, it felt like a big country town. It's certainly not that anymore.
Oh, look, it's come a long way, Brisbane. It's a wonderful lifestyle city now. There's so much on offer. And when I was driving this morning to the airport to come to Melbourne to do this, I was listening to ABC Radio, and they're talking about the announcers were saying, we often read what people say about, they visited Rome, they visited London, great cities of the world, and they love to talk about their experience. They were wondering, what will people say about Brisbane, people who come here for the Olympics? And I think people will say a lot of very positive things about Brisbane: a great climate, a wonderful environment on the river, all these lifestyle elements like South Bank, Hamilton North Shore and others, the Howard Swift wharves that have been redeveloped into this incredible lifestyle precinct. Brisbane offers a lot, and I think it'll be very favourably reviewed by people who visit, both in the lead up to the Olympics and during the Games.
Yes, I agree with you. What about the top 5 Brisbane locations? What's leading the way?
Yeah, well, we're talking about the inner city areas mainly for apartments. I think there's going to be absolutely massive demand. The word's really getting out that the research shows that host cities for Olympics have superior capital growth. The big growth happens in the lead up to the event, not after it, and it's the suburbs closest to the main sporting venues that have the biggest growth, and that means inner city Brisbane. And right now it's a very affordable apartment market with all those lifestyle elements we've just talked about. So I think the demand's going to be massive, and we're going to see big price growth in inner city apartments. And
we've already seen huge price growth.
We already have. In fact, I've been looking at the numbers. Apartments have been massively outperforming houses in Brisbane in the last 12 months, and I think that's going to continue. The Bayside areas are growing in popularity. In the past, they've been kind of underrated in Brisbane. The focus has been more on the Brisbane River, and I'm talking about down at Moreton Bay, where there's these wonderful, relatively affordable Bayside suburbs becoming more popular. And then the more affordable areas are Ipswich City in the southwest, and the Moreton Bay region up in the north, including the Redcliffe Peninsula. So there's lots of different options, all showing signs of growth in Brisbane.
So when we think about units, we're often thinking about, right in the inner city, but you mentioned a couple of locations like your Ipswich, but even in areas like Logan, we're seeing some really strong growth in the unit market there.
The rise in median prices in small units in Logan City, which is one of the cheaper parts of the Brisbane market, has been extraordinary in the last 12 months. I can't believe the numbers. You've got suburbs that people would look at the names like Woodridge and Logan Leaf. I don't know if I want to live there, but as we often say, ugly real estate grows in value, and the cheaper areas often show the best growth, and that's been true for small units in these down market suburbs in Logan City, where the median prices have grown 25%, 30%, 35% in 12 months. So if you bought there a couple of years ago and you might have paid $250,000 or $300,000 for a small unit, it's grown massively in value. You'd be very happy investors.
It's funny when people often talk about if you had $1 million borrowing capacity, what would you buy? Splitting that into a couple of properties, you could buy into those locations achieving 25, 30% growth. You're back in the market with 2 lots of equity gains very quickly.
As you know, Tim, I've been working on a real estate book, which is going to be published in a few months. And one of the points I make, I do a comparison. If you had, say, $10 million and you decided to buy one big prestige property in Toowoomba in Melbourne or Mossman in Sydney, as one option, the other option is you bought lots of small property in places like Logan City or the northern suburbs of Adelaide or some of these regional markets. The Toowoomba property was probably still worth the same as you paid 10 years ago.
If not going backwards in some cases. In Melbourne,
Say we'll do from 5 years, it would still be worth the same or maybe a little bit less, but you would have doubled your money if you'd bought in those cheaper areas that we've just talked about.
Yeah, amazing. All right, we talked a lot about Brisbane. What about these regional markets? What are we seeing there?
Look, a lot of these markets are already very hot, and that's something that people need to look out for, is that places like Rockhampton and Townsville, Gladstone have been heavily targeted by investors, as well as lifestyle buyers moving to those regions as home buyers, have become very competitive. Prices have risen a lot and yields have come down quite a bit, so you can't get those 6% yields so easily or at all in some of those markets. But there are other places that are just starting a new growth cycle. The Sunshine Coast is one of those places. It's a great second wind market, huge future. Toowoomba, I think, is on the cusp of another big step forward.
Can I ask you there, Terry? I keep on seeing property clocks popping up on the internet, and I'm sure everybody knows of a lot of different companies that produce a property clock, and for some reason Toowoomba's been peak of market for at least 18 months now. What have you got to say about that? Because let's face it, there's been some strong growth, but you're still putting in there as a market that can continue to grow. Why is that?
Look, I think some of the people who publish property clocks don't tell time very well. Look, Toowoomba is a market with some big infrastructure drivers. Now, it had a phase of growth, and that was because of the new Wellcamp Airport and the second Rain Crossing, 2 big projects. There's another wave of growth to come for Toowoomba because we've got the Inland Rail Link coming, biggest infrastructure project in Australia, well under construction, Toowoomba's the Queensland hub for it, and that hub's going to be close to where the new airport is. Lots of business, big business, international businesses want to set up there because you've got flights to Sydney and Melbourne, and we've got rails links connecting Brisbane and Melbourne. But you've also got $1 billion hospital just starting construction. So Toowoomba has had a peak, but it's about to go again for those reasons.
There'd be some that would argue it never really slowed down.
Well, that's right.
Well, certainly on price growth. Anyway.
Look, it paused but a little bit, but that only meant that the growth came back to moderate rather than boom growth. But I think it's going to go back to more boom levels. So that's one to watch out for. I think it's a great city. It's Australia's second largest inland city after Canberra. It's got a huge future. It's a wonderful lifestyle city. I'd certainly be happy to live there. It's a great place with great real estate, and it's going to do very well in the future. Cairns is a market that we've started to become interested. In the past, we've been a little bit reticent because its economy is a little bit too much to do with tourism, but it has strengthened and diversified, and it's still got those really high yields that people are looking for. So it's a good one to consider. And Mackay, but primarily for units. Our recent edition of the Pulse report highlighting the areas that show those above average rental yields. Some of the suburbs of Mackay with units, you can buy affordably and get really good rental yields there, and that's a growth market.
Very good. Well, finally, Terry, for some of those markets that we've talked about, there has been, certainly some issues around climate and higher insurances. Did you want to give a word of warning on those before we finish up?
You do need to be mindful about insurance premiums, particularly in North Queensland. Places like Townsville and Cairns, you're probably paying double as a rule of thumb for your landlord's insurance or your household insurance. So that needs to be taken into account. Not so bad when you get further south. But I have to say also that I think tropical North Queensland, because it's in that zone which is reputedly gets lots of tropical cyclones, it's a little bit singled out and unfairly treated because all of Australia seems to be suffering from major weather events. It's not just Queensland.
Yeah, that's very true.
It's a factor everywhere, I think.
That's it. Well, it does go to show, though, you can buy in a lot of parts of Queensland and see some incredible growth in the future. So if anybody's interested, get your hands on one of the top 5 Brisbane or top 5 Regional Queensland reports from hotspotting.com.au. That's the play for today. This program has been brought to you by hotspotting.com.au. This is Ticker. We'll be right back.